So, as we go on to the idea phase of this project, you will have produced and collected a good body of work, both of your own and the work of your other team members. You should by now have a thorough understanding of what is expected of you and your team. It is important that at this stage be creative, have some fun, sketch, paint and sculpt using traditional mediums. Try new approaches to generating ideas and share your work with your team. Ask them for feedback on your initial thoughts and your work. When the whole team has shared their work and their thoughts, it is a good idea to try and identify some key drivers or themes that the whole team agrees upon. These themes or drivers will then go to inform how to proceed and how the different elements of the design sit together harmoniously. A key driver that arose during our team discussions was the use of a spline that would form the basis of everyone's design in one way or another. Some people may view this as a constraint, when in actual fact this was an interesting opportunity to be creative. As you may see in the final project, each team member would interpret the spline in different ways, and this only added to the strength of the final scheme, helping to bring it all together.
The ideation phase is where the designing really begins. When they think of designing, it's the ideation that they're thinking about. This is a part of the process where we bring in all our influences and play around with shape and form and function and try to come up with new ways of making things work based on those influences. It would be important to sketch a lot at this phase. And even more importantly, you'll find you'll get your best ideas if you're willing to try things that are new and odd, very different. Being brave enough to try things that look to other people to be really quite strange is what often leads to the best, most original, most creative ideas. As part of the ideation process, and as guidance to the rest of the group, a group leader came up with the idea that the coastline local to the town that we're working in could be represented by this spline. And where possible, our ideas should try to incorporate this shape and for us to use this to influence our design. One of my early ideas was to consider a covered walkway as part of the shelter. And although at this stage in the development it's simple bands that create the tunnel, the direction for development of this idea was that the shape of the most common local seaweed would be laid over the bands, and then these edges could be profiled to begin to take on the form of the seaweed. Before that idea was too far developed, the rest of the group decided that they'd much prefer a standalone shelter rather than a walkway, so this idea was abandoned before it was fully complete.
During this stage, all of the team members will have ideas to contribute. It is important that as a team, ideas, discussion and creativity are encouraged, and that your feedback always remains constructive. You may not always like an idea, but it is part of the design process in your studies and in the professional world to be able to offer constructive feedback and get your point across in the most persuasive and diplomatic way possible. As we are also tasked with the layout design, it is important that you take on some responsibility for agreeing timelines and schedules with other team members in these meetings. As to a certain extent, the delivery of the final layout depends on receiving designs from other team members in a timely fashion.
So in summary, where we are at the ideation phase then, is that the group has decided to create a spline that all of us will use to try and influence our thinking.
In summary, have some fun, try a new approach to generating ideas, be creative and encourage your team to do so too.